everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cloudicorns podcast. I'm Lucia Subatin, and I'm super excited today. We have a super treat for all SAP developers who have ever wondered what it is like to do development at Google with SAP. I'm here with Diego Dora. Hi, Diego.
Hey guys, how's it going?
And our special guest tonight is the one and only Sujan Gade. Sujan and I met with the SLT connector that replicates data from SAP into BigQuery in near real time, and we just announced it. So I'm super excited. Welcome, Sujan. Thank you for joining. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you, Lucia, for calling me as a special guest. Thank you very much. Let's start.
Absolutely. So let's start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here?
Sure. So been in the industry for 18, 20 years. Started as, I always tell myself, born and raised in SAP. So started my career in SAP, ABAP, and then I expanded my skill set as a junior programmer, as a senior programmer. Worked in consulting for a while, so got a very broad experience of the different industries and different ecosystems of SAP. Seen SAP gone from 3.x to SAP HANA 2021 now, or whatever is the latest, right? So coming from a very strong SAP technical background, I joined Google 3 years ago. I have to say the journey, what I've been through before Google and after Google is like completely different and next level, right? So that's the experience. So basically, once I joined Google, I've seen many customers implement SAP, but Google has very high standards and engineering at heart. Every employee that has pushed SAP to completely next level and solving very tough business problems in a googly way is something that I experience and I would cherish for my lifetime. So that's my, in a nutshell, it has been a great, phenomenal experience. Even though I've seen so many implementations, Google's SAP, the way we use SAP has really astonished me. Yeah, and the way we drive results out of an ERP system like SAP. Yeah, happy to help
It's
and
absolutely.
delve into more details. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's so much to tell, right?
Yeah.
Like the Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, and a lot of other companies that belong in the group, has a massive footprint of SAP development. And one of the things that I found recently, and we normally share, is how this team managed to get SAP to behave like any other system within Google and be really it's magical in the sense that it behaves like API endpoints and has like a lot of queries per second, and it's fully optimized, and you have CI/CD pipelines. So it's like the latest of the greatest applied to a good old ABAP.
Yep.
So that's also great to have some insights about
Sure.
that from an engineering manager, by the way, because we didn't say your position.
By the way, at Google, I'm one of the engineering managers. We have a fleet of engineers. As you all know, we run a big SAP shop. So I'm one of the engineering manager managing a certain portfolio. And I've been one of the early adopters of SAP at Google. And just for a joke, right? So instead of ZSAP, like after a while, SAP gets into a ZSAP, we call it GSAP, which is Google SAP. And so we use SAP truly in a Google way. When I say Google way, we try to push the boundaries of any third-party application to the next level, right? So that's what we do. And as Lucia was talking about API endpoints and stuff like that, we use. I mean, most of our business processes are highly automated systems, which are very less manual intervention required. So for that, we need to use SAP as an ERP system, but APIfying SAP was very much needed, and SAP had to scale. SAP had to be resilient for API calls. We all know SAP is great when an end user interacts, but we had to use this SAP system in a very highly scalable fashion to act like an API server, right? So basically, you can create pretty much any transaction via API, and we have pushed the OData to the extent that I don't see anybody would have pushed it that much. So yeah, so many interesting use cases in Google. Again, SAP runs on Google. We run on Google. We eat our own dog food. And we are live on SAP. So yeah, so that's very interesting, right? So, and many clients are getting onto Google, and we are proud to say we are like the customer zero. We call ourselves customer zero, and we are at the forefront of innovating, pushing Google, and innovating with SAP to come up with products that can take the business to the next level, right? So that's our entire aim here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sean, let me ask you, a question, because as we continue to learn more about GCP and all the
Mm-hmm.
wonderful things and services that you have there, guys, and all the technologies that are not so common for a I, I don't want to call it basic, but it's a person who focus heavily on ABAP, right? So what would you say are the key differentiators that help you? When you start, of course, you're now a manager, so of course you're doing more than just coding and engineering.
Of course.
But what would you say from an engineering point of view, from a developer point of view, are the key differentiators that make you successful at a company like Google, where technologies are ABAP is the baseline, and then you have to build up a bunch of other skills, right?
Yeah, great question, Diego. Right, happy to answer that. So one example is now SAP is on Google Cloud, and Google Cloud being in the forefront of innovation and products that we have for highly scalable applications. World-class companies run on Google Cloud. So the idea is how can a ERP system act like that global, highly scalable, highly resilient application? Generally, ERP is considered like a traditional background, very protected, way in the back. We'll see you at the end, that kind of system. But we are trying to push SAP to the front end, integrate a lot with GCP products. Like for example, right, if you are trying to build an event-based solution between a GCP application or even another cloud or another hyperscaler application, we have pushed ABAP limits where we have built ABAP SDKs. We have another great programmer, Richard, who has built ABAP SDK for GCP products. So natively, as an ABAP programmer, in less than 5 minutes, I should be able to call a PubSub, which is also known as Kafka in other parts of
Yes.
technologies, right? So I'm able to send an event, I'm able to receive an event. That capability will open the door for many technologies. Let's say there is a logistics provider which is waiting for a delivery to be created, right? I have a real-time integration with that, right? And analytics, we're going to get into analytics. Like we built one of the most low TCO, real-time, near real-time data replication, which can scale to millions of records in an hour, which provides the moment you save a transaction in SAP, it's on BigQuery Analytics, and you can empower that. You can put on AI, ML steroids, and then use that prediction and bring that back, the ML power, into SAP for the SAP user to make a real-time decision based on the prediction algorithm that GCP produces. I mean, come on. I mean, we're in application stack where I've not seen in other technologies, other companies or other use cases.
Yeah.
I know there are some attempts that were made by different companies in AML, but I mean, Google being a forefront in analytics and AML space, we feel like that power is like right next inside the ABAP because of the SDK layer that we have built with ABAP. Right?
Yeah.
So that's quite amazing, and our now for us, for any ABAPer, like calling a GCP product, it's like calling another class method or calling a function module, right? So it's so abstracted
That's wonderful.
that we can interact with other GCP products easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
more
that's
coming.
great.
I
That
mean,
reminds me.
stay tuned with the news. More of them is coming. We are cooking this internally. We are trying to get this out to public so that there are strong releases, and we have a support system and all that stuff. But yeah,
This is what we are all waiting, right? So we're just waiting for you to show us the wonders that you're doing there. You're the best customer reference is yourself, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah.
That reminds me that we should think of inviting Richard Young here as well, because the other person we collaborated with mostly during the development of the SLT connector, and that leads me to, let's talk about the SLT connector. So you mentioned this general idea that flows across all of the Alphabet systems about scaling and scaling massively and huge, like real big data, not just a little bit of data, but actual real petabyte scale data. And that's, you mentioned the component yourself, the SLT connector. So why was it created? How did that happen? How did that start?
Sure. Right. So data is the new gold, right? I mean, data is gold nowadays. This is the data era, right? Whoever gets the data in real time is the winner in this era, right? So that's what everybody's chasing towards, right? So how can I get the data? How can I analyze? How can I produce results and put it back into my business? And they want to make the decisions that cycle faster. Yes, you have n number of ETL technologies that you can implement, which are very tough to maintain, high maintenance, and diverse technologies, licensing cost, and then you bring the data, and then you build data marts on top of that, and that has to be hosted and all that stuff. So Google Cloud, if you have an SAP system, provides one-stop solution for that, right? So that's our aim, where you have an ERP system where your transactions are happening, and we want to flow the data like a very flow, like a river, into our analytics platform, which is BigQuery, which is like #1 analytics platform in the world in terms of hyperscaling. And the data is right there in less than a second, or like we're talking near real time, right? So sub-second frequency, you are having the data. Now that data can be put in terms of any analytical use case, and you're able to get the data. So we thought, okay, we don't have a solution every time we have to do a batch load and refresh the data. So if you go to market, that's the first thing that you see. Like you have SAP technologies like BODS, data hubs, you have Informaticas of the world and all that stuff. You have to invest in those technologies, get the data out in a batch mode, and then realize the data. Like then we said that, hey, how fast we can get and how easily we can get. So that's where my idea started, and we run BigQuery like anything, right? So we use BigQuery, it's our product, and we use it really to the true sense of BigQuery, right? So when we had SAP project, they wanted data in BigQuery, right? So business wants data in BigQuery. So how do I get the data very easily in a very low cost? So that was an internal problem that we had, and then we said, okay, anybody who's coming onto GCP will have the same problem. I mean, that's the USP for any SAP customer or any big enterprise to come on to Google, because we have a great analytical platform, right? So that's where this problem became solidified, and that's when we were hunt for options. And I was able to manage SLT, is SAP's product, which is great. I mean, it's been in the market for a while, low licensing, and most of the SAP customers have it. We have the license and all that stuff. So we thought, okay, how about building a connector on the other end of SLT, where SLT is great in reading the real-time data, and we check the scalability options and all that stuff, and then we built a bolt-on or an add-on onto SLT, because we know BigQuery, we have the SDK layer, we have the foundation. We made a connector, BigQuery Connector for SAP, which has been GA'd in last couple of months. I'm sure you'll find the link below. So we have built a easy to implement, highly scalable, highly resilient application connector to immediately transfer any CDC operation, like any insert, update, or delete, gets immediately replicated into BigQuery. And now you have the data guys to churn that and do whatever you want with it in less than few seconds, right? So that was the idea. And yeah, of course, this is all built in ABAP by Google engineers using BigQuery SDK as an endpoint. and we integrate well into the SAP framework, SLT framework, so that we don't break the integrity of SAP enhancement framework. So that's how it started, and I mean, we have seen last 1.5 year journey. We have many customers already using in their production. We use it heavily. We transfer millions of records via this tool, and I would like everybody to check it out and see how you can access this tool and make your analytics near real time in a very fast fashion. Yeah.
And so there's two things that I'd like to highlight there. Because I've been very involved with the connector. Wow. I took it to many customers. I even managed to sneak some ABAP code in there that, of course, people took over and beautified, because I haven't ABAP'd in a very long time. But one of the first things to highlight that customers normally ask is this standard or is this blessed? It's a baddie, it's a business add-in, it's an enhancement, and the code goes in there. We're using the place that SAP told us this is where your code goes, and we're using it in there. So it's blessed in that sense. Yep. And that's the frequently asked question. The other one is normally when I do a demo, and by the way, we'll get a demo launching probably around the same time in which this podcast launches, so stay tuned. As Sujan said in the links in the YouTube, I'll have that demo there in the comments. But when I demo this to a customer, normally they say, "Shut up and take my money," because they're flabbergasted or surprised at how easy it is to get a new record in there. It's using SLT the same way that people already know how to use, so there's no upskilling of any sort. And it's also very standard, because since it's an enhancement spot, if something goes wrong on BigQuery side, then that gets surfaced all the way to SLT, and SLT flags that thing for reprocessing like it would normally do with any other target, like a HANA database. Yep. So that's beautiful. The other question that I normally get is what happens with tables like BSEG, because people somehow are used to direct connections. Yep. But Sujan, I'll let you take that one over.
Yeah. No, I mean, basically SLT supports BSEG, and I'm sure most of the customers are moving to SAP S/4HANA. Then you're talking about AC Doka, which is the largest table, widest table, most critical table in SAP. And we have seen in lab environments, millions of records being replicated with that, no problem, right? So as long as SLT supports a table, we support it, right? So as simple as that. And to your point, Lucia, right, the whole setup screens, the configuration tool that we deliver along with this tool is also built in native ABAP. The configuration tool lies in SLT, so a person doesn't have to go log into another system, or you don't have to install another server. It directly integrates into SLT. And SAP has done a great job where SLT can be deployed on a ERP system, or it can be run as separate, right? Depending upon how your workloads are. If you have a small to medium system, it's okay to install SLT directly on the application server, and we support both deployments. And guess what? I mean, we support this connector wherever you run your SAP, which means you can run SAP on-prem. You can run in any other hyperscaler. We can get the data safely into BigQuery. Of course, is there a speed matters? Yes. Then you have to amp up your network level. You have to use your cloud VPNs and cloud interconnects to increase your speeds and all that stuff. But if you are in GCP, you get the best of the performance, best of everything, right? So that Google has to offer. Yeah, a good point.
Yeah, that's. Yes, and then that's you touched on another point that is also very important. What happens if the system is on premise or in another cloud? I also would like to second the part in which I think our worst enemy in that case is the network. Yep. The biggest failures we've seen are actually due to the network not being properly sized. I mean, if you're trying to put more than the 3 megabytes that your network can handle, in throughput, then of course you'll have an idle CPU waiting for that traffic to flow. So yeah, that's I think our biggest challenge that we've had to tackle, and the best advice that we can give. One other thing that I can mention is that if you go into the downloads for this, that again you'll see in the links in the YouTube video, you'll see that this thing can be downloaded free of charge. So if you have an SLT system, just go ahead and use it. And I'm pretty sure that I would like to know the feedback and how that goes. And I'm pretty sure that Sujan would like to know the feedback about how that goes on the SLT side.
Yep.
And maybe we can switch topics a little bit, just because I mentioned something earlier about how we or you and your team managed to make SAP all API enabled, which is also golden.
Yeah. So,
So-
yeah, sure. I can throw some light, right? So all our Google systems are typically, all our microservice architecture technologies where I build something and I always call APIs to get the best of the functionality from other system, right? So we want to consider SAP as just another system where I can call and get my information or save some information, right? So that's truly, we made SAP close to a first party or Google developed system from a calling perspective, right? So we have our own way of doing things. We use gRPC a lot. It's a published protocol. We use gRPC a lot. All of our applications are gRPC enabled. So engineering teams have built bridges to connect to SAP in terms of APIs. And the other way around, right? Like if SAP has to call a gRPC, we built another bridge to do that. Not every customer has gRPC, but that was our primary requirement. But truly from a SAP standpoint, we use OData a lot, right? So SAP has been using OData for a while, but I think we pushed OData to an extent where nobody would have used OData to that extent, right? So we have pretty much every business object we have created a OData interface, and we have a central, we have a very strong OData team, and we had to do a lot of performance tuning. Of course, SAP has multi-level performance tuning and all that stuff. So we had a champion team that was able to scale, throttle from web server to lowest level database level to handle our loads, prioritize, deprioritize, and all that stuff. So we have all the SAP toys that we can think of to play. So that way we were lucky, and we have the best SAP's attention from standpoint. So we were able to, use APIs as the most interactive way to SAP, right? So there are more API transactions that happen than manual transactions. So I think that's the best way to put it, right? So for such a big ERP implementation, when I say that, it means pretty much everything is an API for us.
Yeah. Maybe if I can ask a question, but you don't have to give us any confidential information. But a couple of months ago, I took a look at gRPC because I think it's a wonderful thing. And I try, to think in different ways on how to implement it from the ABAP side, right? And the reality is like there was not a really straightforward way, and everything that came into my mind just took like 3 to 9 months of just like hitting the keyboard with my head for the most part. So if you can, in which way did you solve the problem of calling gRPC APIs from the ABAP stack? Meaning like some of your services for the most part they're all REST.
Correct.
But all of them are gRPC enabled, and of course you would like to use gRPC because it's like, I don't know, 100 times faster.
I can answer only certain limit.
Of course.
But,
Yeah.
we are still trying to crack that problem. The reason because SAP does not support RSA 256 encryption, and
Yes.
gRPC is fundamentally built on that encryption model, right? So we don't, ABAP SAP does not support. SAP supports only HMAC,
Yeah.
encryption, and gRPC is a streaming API built on HTTP2 protocol. It's not just like I post it and I get a response back. It's like
This is
before
got
post
it.
and I tweet, there is always a like back and forth happening.
Hmm.
And SAP S4, it can receive HTTP calls. Internally, it converts into HTTP1 calls, but going out, it cannot do HTTP2 calls. So there
Correct.
are fundamental challenges of SAP stack, like ABAP stack. We can't call it NetWeaver stack anymore, but ABAP stack, that
Hmm.
we are not able to make that, but that doesn't stop us from calling. So we use SAP's middleware. We have other middlewares where
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay.
we
Okay.
call middleware, and the middleware
Yeah.
is based on Java, and Java can easily talk to gRPC. So
Yeah.
that's how we solve the problem at this point of time. And yeah,
Yeah.
so not everything is a direct connection. We don't encourage
Gotcha.
until it's an exception basis,
Hmm.
unless it's real time needed and all that stuff. So we have an enterprise service bus. We have a great team, integration COE team, which does all the magic of integration. But to your question, yeah. So there's no
No,
straightforward
no, that's
way.
straight up. I was just trying to crack some. So I wanted to have the gRPC Java library on the actual machine, right, where the ABAP stack is running, and then just make system calls and just try to crack it that way. And it is basically you can do something like that, but it's illegal. So I just stopped that route. But and I saw that of course there are some libraries for the different middlewares and so on and so forth.
Right. Yeah.
But fair enough, fair enough. Thanks for the insight. It's definitely something it has been bugging me for the past 6 months, I have to say. And I think SharePC is a wonderful thing, so I look forward for the day that it is natively supported, the ABAP stack. Let's see if the gods of ABAP they hear us at some moment in time.
Yeah.
It sounds like a feature request
Yes, for sure,
for our friends at SAP.
for sure.
And speaking of feature requests, maybe Sujan, you can talk about collaboration with SAP, because you said it yourself, the scaling that the Alphabet team has done for the gateway is out of this world. I think it required a lot of collaboration. I mean, even we had a collaboration with SAP while we're launching the SLT connector to tweak and makes a few things a bit more performing.
No, I mean, we have SAP support, right? So leadership support and SAP collaboration at all levels. So whenever SAP system cannot scale, they take it as a feature request, and if SAP can respond fast, they have delivered as a feature request in the next release or whatnot, as a note or something. So we were lucky enough with that, right? But like every SAP tool comes with parameters to to calibrate depending upon your requirements, right? So we kind of pushed every parameter to the extent where we kind of squeeze the functionality to the maximum, right? So yeah, there were low-level nodes that we asked for where SAP had to fix. Of course, we all know SAP is a great product, but there is always human error and bugs. So there's always back and forth happening. But yeah, I mean, part of our Google SAP partnership is we push the functionalities, we build a business case, there is a channel how to request, and SAP takes it as a priority and delivers it, and we call it co-innovation, right? So that cycle keeps on going. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe I do have another question, because I find it fascinating a little bit about the CI/CD pipelines, the automated testing and deployment, which I had the pleasure of experimenting with firsthand, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. So that is something proprietary for Google. Like we are very proud about calling ourselves. Like I'm sure there are many blogs about it. We have one of the best CI/CD pipelines, auto deployment infrastructure in the world. Uh, uh, but in this case, we're trying to retrofit SAP's transport system into our Google way of doing CI/CD and all that stuff. So it's works underway. I guess it's more proprietary. I may not be able to share that much, but yeah. So that will be, that is something that we are trying to crack. And SAP is also making strides. There is something called GCTS,
GCTS, yeah.
not Google CTS, but GCTS, which is GitHub GCTS, which they're trying to make. but it still doesn't support everything. It doesn't support the config tables. It doesn't support table entries and all yada yada yada. And we don't use Git. So as I told, we have our own repository system, repository server. So once that is fully baked, I guess we may have to, open the use a surgery knife and do whatnot to make it fit, right? So, but we still see SAP still maturing in that area. I mean, they're still, it's highly dependable on the traditional transport methodology, which is working for most of them, but not for us, right? So we need CI/CD pipelines, automated testing, auto deployments, and all that stuff to happen. But I don't think SAP is still there. As we all know, SAP has been, the underlying technology hasn't changed for the last 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this, you can say yes or no, and that's it. So you're not using Solution Manager Charm, I guess, right? So you're just, or you're piggybacking from it a little bit. Okay.
We integrate Charm with our pipelines, and we integrate into the Charm workflow to do that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So Charm is Charm has given baddies to integrate with your own CI/CD pipelines. I don't think any customer would have done it, but probably pushing that down.
Yeah.
And again, all credit goes to, I'm talking a lot of work that has done by hundreds of engineers, and I guess I'm talking on behalf of them.
You're representing them today. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, representing them today. I'm kind of feeling guilty as well when I'm talking about their work. So yeah.
We're highlighting it. Yeah, it's clear, of course, that a single person cannot do all of this. There's a lot of engineering.
A team effort,
power.
For sure. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think we could go on talking forever about this. There's so many topics, and even I'm thinking that it would be a great idea to have you again, Sujan,
sure.
if that would be acceptable to you, and maybe even bring the other folks that participated in the SLT connector, Richard and Michael Horus. We hadn't mentioned him, but he also did a lot of work with us while going into customers.
We should have just a podcast about APIs. It's like a 1 hour podcast about APIs. Because I love data, but it has certain limitations. So I would love to hear how you crack certain aspects of structuring APIs with working with the data, not just plain REST or GraphQL or something else. So, but yeah, I guess for another day. We're trying to be compliant with the request from our listeners of keep it to 30 minutes. So here we are today.
Yes, so thanks a lot, Sujan. Great talk, great work as usual. It's a pleasure hearing from talented people like you talking about SAP, and I'm sure that our listeners will appreciate this view of ABAP in a very mature and cloud native context, which is fascinating.
So pretty fast.
Thanks again.
Yeah. No, appreciate it. Appreciate for the for the talk. Yeah. I mean, basically, just tune in for any blogs from Google SAP. You'll be seeing a lot of innovations coming in this year and next year, where you'll not be limited by just doing ABAP inside the box, but you can go outside the box very fluently, right? So that's our aim, where the ABAP productivity has to extend into Google technologies. Yeah. So that's our
Absolutely. Thanks again for joining us today.
Have a nice weekend, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sujan. Thank you, Lucia. Have a good day, guys. Take care.
Take care, and thanks everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night, guys.